What's up, comic book fans, true believers, webheads? This is another episode of Worthy Ones, the video series where I take all the newest #1 comic books that I read for the current comic book week and deem them worthy or not worthy. Guys, I'm Mike Spider Slayer. Welcome back to Comic Book Corner 2.0. If you love daily comic book content, if you love getting advice on what comic books to buy, I'm your guy. Guys, make sure you hit that subscribe button right there in the corner, or actually on my homepage, whatever. So let's not waste any more time. This is the first episode of Worthy Ones in quite some time, so let's dive into it. So let's kick off everything with what's going on in DC right now. And we have Night Terrors, First Blood, Issue 1. This book reminds me of an event that we just had a few years ago, and I'll tell you what it is after we talk about this book. This issue is written by Joshua Williamson, and the artwork is done by Howard Porter. Now, the artwork in this issue is really well done. It does a nice job making you feel like it's a horror book, that you're in this like dreamlike state, and I appreciated where they went with it. You also get Boston Brand in this book, and it was fun to see him because I feel like we haven't seen him in a long time. And DC as a whole is doing a much better job at introducing or reintroducing characters back in their universe again and giving themselves a more expanded universe besides seeing Batman, okay? Now, the issue itself is okay. It sets everything up as we get to see like Dr. Destiny hide this stone within a hero or villain's dream state, and we get introduced to a new character that we've never seen before, and his name is Insomnia. And so he's going to go into every hero and every villain, and he's going to search for this stone. So obviously he can get like this ultimate power or whatnot. It's, you know, obviously we've seen stories like this before, but it was entertaining, and I'm just gonna give this book, I'm gonna deem this book worthy. Yeah, you know, it wasn't the best read, it wasn't the most original read, but I do want to see how the main series plays out. Now, will I continue with all the other books, like the miniseries, the 2-issue miniseries? I'm not sure yet, but this book, if I had to give it a grade, I'm gonna give it a grade of a C+. Great artwork. I like the tone of it. I do want to see where it goes, but it reminds me too much of an event that happened a few years back, and I'm not sure if you guys read this, but I know a lot of you have. It's called Convergence, okay? It was a very similar, almost exact kickoff, the exact way they kicked things off. The main villain's name was Telos, and what happened is he trapped all the heroes in their own individual worlds. And everything took a pause in DC for a couple of issues, and they all had their own individual stories. The same exact thing that's going on in Night Terrors right now. So this is so similar, so exact. It's not even funny. It's not original at all. So, you know, for a lot of you guys out there, if you're not wanting to spend money when it comes to these miniseries, don't do it. Just follow the main book. Night Terrors Ravenger Issue 1. Now, I didn't really buy this book for the story. I bought it for the variant cover. I thought the cover looked great, very horrific, and I was like, well, why not read it just because I have it, right? So I decided to give it a try. This one is written by Ed Brisson, and the artwork in this book is done by Dexter Soy. It's definitely very bloody. It's gory, and I kind of like that, but the story itself was very fast. There wasn't very much dialogue in this. So far I showed you about 6 or 7 pages, and for $5 you're getting such a very small story here. We get to see Rose go through her nightmare, and she comes across a much younger version of herself, and she tries to save herself, and her younger self becomes evil, and the next thing you wind up seeing is like it winds up stabbing Rose and basically tries to kill her. Again, the artwork is the main thing that's going for this book, but I cannot deem this book worthy. I am deeming it not worthy. I would not recommend you picking this book up. If you love variant covers though, and you collect, cover art for comic books, that's what's going for this comic book. But for $5, $4, it's just not worth it whatsoever. I did not like it. I'm going to give this one a D+. So yeah, stay away from this mini. Night Terrors of Batman. This is issue 1. So number 1, I bought this because of the Francisco Mantina variant cover. It looked awesome. So again, I did spend $5, but at least I got a good cover here. Next, because it's Batman, and you would think there's going to be a great story when it comes to Night Terrors Batman, right? So I decided, okay, we'll check out this one. Now, I'm just letting you know, I did not buy all the Night Terror stuff, and this is the last one we'll be talking about today. This one is written by Joshua Williamson as well, and the artwork is done by Golia March. The artwork is pretty good in this book. Here we get to see some weird-looking young Bruce Wayne when he's in his nightmare. The overall artwork is fine. It's definitely serviceable. It makes you feel like you're in a nightmarish state. There's this one point where Bruce is actually transforming into this bat, where he transforms and he throws up this bat creature out of his mouth, which is quite interesting and grotesque. That I felt like was the best part of the book whatsoever. I mean, that's what comes out of him, is that creature right there. So I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. But the overall book here kicks off where Alfred is training Batman to deal with his biggest fears and nightmarish states. So when it comes to that, he has planned for that contingency, right? Because that's what Batman does. He plans for everything, he trains for everything, and then all of a sudden you get to see him in this nightmarish state. Insomnia definitely, he introduces himself. He tries to scare Bruce Wayne into, the whole situation with his parents being killed and whatnot. He introduces, what his plan is about getting this nightmare stone, and you constantly get to see, Bruce being like, I'm not afraid of you, I've trained for this, and blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot of talking heads in this book. There was that grotesque moment that I talked about, and then at the end of the day, we wind up seeing Batman transform into this, in this nightmarish state, which is, I don't know, just this nightmare version of Batman. And then all of a sudden, the dream takes over once again, to the point where he becomes Joe Chill, and he's actually going to shoot his own parents, which I thought that was kind of cool. So I'm going to deem this book worthy. Yeah, it was entertaining enough. It had great artwork inside of it, and I want to see how this nightmare pans out. Again, it's only 2 issues. It's Batman. There's a decent story here. Nothing fantastic. So if I had to grade this one, I'm going to grade this one a B-. I mean, it's good. It's good, but not fantastic. And I did want a little bit more out of it, but out of probably some of these ones that you're going to read, this might be the best one you get. We'll see. So before we move on, I did hear, though, the Joker Night Terror book and the Poison Ivy one was actually pretty good. And when it comes to these Night Terror books, let me know in those comments below which one was your favorite. All right, so now we're going to go on to a new Scott Snyder book, which I wasn't going to buy, but it was recommended to me by John, my comic shop manager. And it's Barnstormers, issue 1, written by Scott Snyder. Now, this book is $5.99. It's got a lot of pages, though, and it was a pretty solid story. The artwork in here is done by Tula Lotte. Very nice and soft, watercolored artwork. Some of the characters look so gorgeous in this comic book, and I was impressed by it. And the story did start off a little bit slow, but the more and more you read the book, the more vested you get into the main character by the name of Bigsby, and then he comes across a female character by the name of Tilly. And what goes on in this comic book is that Bigsby's an old pilot from the war, and he's trying to make a living by doing stunt shows and things like that, but it's just not working out in his favor. And his dream is to actually go to Tampa and do one of these shows, but he can't raise enough money to do it. So what happens is he winds up getting this gig to get paid a whole $1.50, and he winds up at the wrong place at the wrong time, and he winds up going to a wedding, and he crashes the wedding, and they lock him up, right? Well, little do you know is that the cuffs were undone, and the bride-to-be was the one that released him, and she did not want to get married to this specific individual, and she gives this guy an ultimatum. You can either stay here or take me with you. And the adventure that unfolds, it's quite interesting. Now, when it comes to our main character, Bigsby, he actually has this PTSD that he comes across to where certain things trigger him, where he sees this killer robot. Where this robot came from, I don't know if it was something in the war or whatnot, but it was quite interesting to see what this guy is going through and seeing these two characters actually fall in love. So I'm going to deem this book worthy. Absolutely phenomenal. This blew me away. I did not think I would like a book like this, but the more and more I read, the more and more I enjoyed it. And, you know, when it comes to Scott Snyder's writing, sometimes you just can't doubt it. The man really knows how to read. So if I grade this book, I'm going to give this book an A. And I really can't wait for the second issue. And this is definitely a high recommend for me. Thor Annual Issue 1. Now, originally I wasn't going to buy this book because I was so over Thor and its current run. I know it just ended, but then I was like, you know what? It's the annual, and then the new run starts, so why not get everything? And then I also read the synopsis, and I was like, oh, it sounds kind of cool too, because we have MODOK in here, and he becomes like this cosmic being. So I went to the comic shop, I picked it up, I looked at it, and I was like, man, the artwork looks pretty good in here. And then I saw who wrote it, and it was Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing. The art is done by Abraham Robertson. And when I looked at this art, I'm like, holy cow. Like, this should be the new artist on the new Thor run, because it's very similar to Nick Klein's artwork. I mean, it looks so good, right? And I'm like, when they produce this annual, could they be shooting themselves in the foot when it comes to the upcoming volume of Thor? Like, look at everything, the layouts, the panels, just everything that went into this annual. You would think that this would be the new #1 issue to kick everything off. Like, this is amazing, right? I was like, man, I was blown away by this. And then this part right here, by this new MODOK that was introduced, I'm like, oh my God, that is so much fun. So what this story had to offer was Thor was trying to stop MODOK because he collected all the pieces of the Bifrost. The Rainbow Bridge is destroyed, and somehow MODOK absorbed all this. He used all his power to absorb all this, and then he changed Earth in his way because he became a god, and he wanted Earth to be this completely different thing where he controlled it. And Peter Parker was introduced in this world. He wasn't Spider-Man. He was just some average Joe Schmo. And when it comes down to it, Thor does his thing. He prevails. He deems himself worthy, and he destroys this version of MODOK. This is just a one and done story, but man, this is what comics is about. Just a lot of fun, a lot of action, a lot of bright colors, in your face. I mean, just check this out. You cannot go wrong with this comic book, and I deem this book worthy, absolutely worthy. And not only when you get this story, when this story is complete, then you get the introduction to kind of what's going to go on in the main storyline when it comes to the new volume that's getting ready to be released. Now, here is the artwork in the new volume of Thor. That's what it's going to look like. Not as dark, not as detailed, but we can see that a direction is being changed as Thor gets back into like his normal costume, and he also makes Mjolnir where he's not destroyed anymore, or it's not cracked or in pieces. Now, this story you're only going to see in this annual. So if you want to read this particular story, you got to read this one. So make sure you pick it up. This one is definitely worth the $5. If I had to grade this book, I'm going to grade this one an A-. I love the annual story. I liked the story that we got in the back, but man, I enjoyed the annual portion, the portion that's just a one and done story, a lot more. But I am looking forward to the new Immortal Thor, and hopefully Al Ewing can write a solid story and not go too deep into things like he does with certain stories. So we'll see what happens. So I would love to see in the comments below what you deemed worthy or not worthy this week. And if you love my content, I'll leave you more content right here. In fact, this is my newest comic book haul for all the comic books I read for the current comic book week. And of course, guys, as always, keep buying, keep collecting, but remember to read those comics. Guys, take care. I'll see you real soon. Bye.